Hi everybody and welcome back to the painting channel. Today I hope it's going to be a quick watercolour. I plan on that, so let's just dive straight in and see what happens. So it's going to be a little river scene and very quickly done. I hope this is just a suggestion more than anything else. We've got a lovely river bank coming through here, coming down. Now I'm not quite sure of the name of the river. The area or where this is, this actually comes round here, is part of Bodium Castle, and you can't quite see it, it's up round the other bend, but there is the Bodium Bridge, which is a beautiful old stone bridge that goes across this main river. As I say, I'm not quite sure of the river's name. I'm sure there'll be somebody out there who can inform me on that in the comments section if you know this area very well. But I just thought it would be a lovely image to do for you very quickly. I hope, as I say, I never do tend to do very quick pictures, but in this one I hope that we can accommodate that. And let's just get that top of that field in. We've got some trees over the back there and a few more here. Really and truly, you don't need to do an awful lot of drawing for that. There is part of, I think this is the restaurant area and the car park that is part of Bodium Castle. I'm just going to put that there. You can't see too much because the river has sort of gone all the way up to the top here, and then it's literally gone right out of view as it then goes off up to that part up the top there, and it actually goes back round, and there's quite a tall tree type thing here which we will put in very quickly like so. There's another one or two. These are massive old trees in the grounds of the castle, and it's a beautiful place. I've actually never been around it. It's a National Trust property. Now they look after it, and you can go in there on admission and enjoy, you know, all that it's got to offer. But I was there on this day doing other work. I was actually there researching painting material for my last acrylic book, which was painting water basically, and so this was perfect for getting some great water pictures and reference and sketches and some plein air. And yeah, I had a great time, and there's actually quite a big lump of trees up around there I've forgotten, so let's just put those in. Now that is our basic drawing, so I will start the process of colouring, and let's apply some watercolour. Okay, so the sky, oh yeah, I didn't clean that brush out too well. Alright, let's get some cloth and let's sort that out. I want to make this, apart from the drying time, I want to make this quite a fast painting. Let's just see how we go. Right, so the sky is going to be fairly simple. Cobalt sky. It is quite a grey day. There wasn't a lot of light. It came out once or twice and not much more. But I'm going to put in this quick sky, and it's going to come all the way down through these trees, and I'm going to take it all the way through. I'm going to try and miss the top there of that little top of the cornfield or stubble or whatever that is. Actually, that's a little bit of phthalo blue into the top of that too. Just one very simple wash colour coming all the way down through there and into this area. It doesn't matter that it's going through these trees. In fact, I need it to go through these trees. So I'm just coming very quickly down and let it come down. I'm going to miss the top of this field here too. That's way too much colour. Let's just get that out. I'm going to come all the way in here, missing that there, and take that in through there. I wanted to miss that blue on the top of the bit of green there, which I'm actually going to do. What I will do is I'm going to take that out with a dab or two, and what I'm going to do is drop some yellow ochre, just some neat yellow ochre, into the top of there, and let that fuse its way down through the greenery of the hills. And I'm going to do the same into the top of this too. That lovely strong set of light that's in the top of that field, and let that come down. I really don't want it in the top of the water, so I'll just tap that out, dry that off a tad and let the water then carry on coming down through here, through this greenery, and let that do what it wants to do. And we have pretty much done our, just tap that out there, pretty much done our sky, and we've allowed the wash to come all the way through the water and let that come all the way through to the bottom, and it will dry up much lighter than we've got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to now let this settle up, put the hairdryer on it, and we can then carry on back into the picture. Okay, so we're dry and we're ready to carry on, and for that I'm just going to start putting in the more distant features of the land masses, the trees and the fields beyond. So to that I'm going to carry on using this cobalt blue, and I actually can come straight in with some ultramarine blue too. Very similar in many ways at this point, because we're going to start adding some other values to that. And to that I'm going to put in a little tap of Indian yellow, just to dirty it up to a dirty violet colour, and a little bit of raw sienna, turn it into a dull dirty green. Now I want to come in with some of these distant hills that are running up through here, and they're quite, actually could be a little bit more violety. Let's come in with a little bit of Indian red into that blue, go back to the cobalt because that's the one this is, and just run that through again. It doesn't matter to a point that it is quite a bit darker at this stage. We can't see too much of the hill beyond here, although we can quite easily take that on if we wish to. Right, let's just soften the base edge of that because it will be darker with the trees. So I just want to lose some of that. It's almost a bit of mist coming up in the distance. That's what we'll treat that as, taking the base out of this hill as it climbs. Alright, now the lovely thing about this part of the river is that you see you can't see the castle up here on the top, and you've got in the grounds up round on this bend as we go towards the cafe restaurant area, we've got an old World War II pillbox that was a gunnery position in case the Germans ever use this river. I think this is the River Rother. I'm not 100% sure. I think it is, and if I'm correct in that, then they could have entered this river way back down in Rye, and then would have come up and used it. But there was a gunnery position here, and there's a beautiful, I don't know how old it is, it's ancient looking, old stone bridge that comes across the river just beyond this cafe area. And the story goes, and I'm sure it's correct as I'm pretty sure I read it on a plaque there, that during the war they had this position and they had the gun aimed up through, but because the bridge was too high, they actually took the entire top layer of the bridge off right the way down to the road surface, so they can have a clear shot all the way through up the river should they need it. I don't think it was ever used in that degree. I don't think the Germans ever came up the river in that way, but it's an interesting little story. Anyway, I digress, and we need to get this painting done. So I've just used that now, and I'm just going to come in with some cooler greens that are sort of the distant greens along here very quickly, just to suggest them top of this field, and nice gentle cool greens, distant greens, as I say. We're going to actually add to a few of those towards the end. And I'm going to come up here. I haven't done anything to preserve the roof. I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be a bit warmer, but we can change that. Then we've got some of the more distant trees going up here, and I think you can just see a few out through the back here. A very heavily wooded area, and because of the age of the castle, the trees are very mature specimens. Now there is a good cause to put in some more acidic lighter greens, just to give myself a little light accent on these ones here on the edge of the river. Let's put those there. and let that dry off, and then using the edge of the brush, now this is smooth paper and I often use this, but I'm just going to come in as I did in the painting demonstration of last week, just used a very dry light colour, gently tapping and leaving one or two of what I call the sky holes popping through this tree every so often. It will come away from the warmer colours and we can just see the darks that will start popping in place. But even some of those will have to have sky holes, as I call them, working through the tree. Now there is a bit of a warmer one which has got a significant lovely sort of warm yellowish tinge to the top of it, and then we go popping straight back into some of this limier green light tops to this one here. It could be even a bit more yellow. Very quickly, I'm aware of the time pressing, and just one or two little lights coming in as we come down to what will be the top of this little bit of field. And what I'm going to quickly do is just come in with the suggested negative space. It's almost like the grass is growing up and past the point where you can start seeing the tree into this. So that's like painting the very negative spaces. Going to do the same here, as give a little contour to that piece of hill and just change some of what you can see, and the way you can see it looks like a dip in there. Then bring it back up, and we will come back in with more of this. I'm just going to put that in there, but it's going to be a much darker value. I'm just going to tap some of the mid green into one or two places, not a lot. I don't want to replace one for the other, just one or two bits and pieces, just going in like so, like that. We can reshape the tree should we need to later on, and I'm going to use some of this now to put some lights into some of the trees in the far distance, or up into the area around the castle itself. And so I'm just going to put a light value in to start and let that suggest the edge of the riverbank there, and coming up again to where we are here. So you've got two areas, and hopefully that will do the job. And we're going to look at some more down here. There's a lot more light greens going on up in that area. The riverbank goes all the way through, and we've got to suggest that too. So what I want to do is I'm going to use a little bit of lemon yellow, bit of cobalt, so aureolin, not lemon yellow, and just suggest the fresher green. That's a little too much. I'm going to come back in now, some lemon and some phthalo blue. Just remix that. I want some livelier greens through the riverbank here. Very quickly, just bash them in place and let them set up. They will, I hope, is the plan, to dry much lighter. I want to bring some of those down through here very quickly around the edge of the river. I need it to dry up because I do need the river to have much darker accents of reflections before we finish. I need the same colours on this side. Let's come in with that. And there's lots of little areas like that where there's different parts of the bank. I actually believe some of these are sort of used by fishermen. They're like little areas that suggest a designated spot for a fisherman to sit and work in competition when working with other people. I'm going to put that up through there very quickly. Change that to a little bit of burnt sienna up through there. There's sort of these little dried heads of seeds and stuff. I'm not quite sure the plant. I know we used to grab handfuls and throw them as kids. They're so dry and they just pull off in your hand. It's quite well, as kids I suppose we had a lot of fun doing it. A little few up through there. Just want to suggest that there is something else in this greenery as opposed to just grass. I can't put in all the subtle little plants. I don't intend to. Just want to have some degree of information. There's some along the base of the river here, like so. Put that in, and I think the ones I put there should have been up closer from here. Never mind. We still managed to make a nice image of it, I think. I put a little bit of transparent orange into the mix too, just to give them a slightly different, warmer value in one or two places, like so. Not too much. And I'm going to vary some of the greens. I'm going to put some aureolin in, just to give some fresher greens to some of these areas through here, the ones that are closest to us. And I'm going to do perhaps the same thing into some of this too. Just vary the green mixes. They will bleed together, they will mix, and I'm not too worried about that. Just a little bit of variation before we then go on and put in some more interesting shadows, etc. on the picture. Nice little dark edge under there will be, but we've got a light subject. We're going to just get it a little bit lighter in the green. Keep coming back. And just put a little bit more green into that, and then some more into some of these, like so. That's better. Just, it wasn't quite dark enough. I just wanted to play around with some of those, just to skip through and give some nice feeling to that riverbank. And I want to do the same on this side too. So I'm just going to come back in with some of that sienna, some of that orange, and just play with one or two marks in here. You can do this with a much finer brush if you want to, if you feel happier about doing that. But I'm just coming in with some of these marks with the brush that I'm using, and I'm going to leave it where I'm going to actually come back into some of this because I want to put some more out through here, but I need to get this river set up first. Alright, let's come in with a stronger but cooler green. So we've got that light color at the moment. Let's come in with some ultramarine blue and some Indian yellow to that, make a firmer, darker green for some of these trees way off here in the distance. As I said, it's not a very sunny day, and that would have led to many more beautiful green values showing up had I had that sun on my side. I didn't. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to come over the top of the restaurant and just bring out one or two other greens and values across the top of the roof, and leave a bit of the field, and then just come up with some in here. Not quite exactly what we're seeing, but it's not so bad. And a little bit of dark around some of this tree and in the shadow of this part here to give that a nice soft feeling. I don't know what tree that is actually. It's quite a shrubby type tree, and it's sort of got a very upright spindly growth, so I'm going to suggest that a little bit like that. It's not a fir tree, it's not a Christmassy type tree or anything like that. It's just got a very, very spindly growth, which I'm just going to use. Now, doing it with this brush can be a little dangerous. I know the brush has got a nice tip to it, and if you've got a brush with a good tip on it, then you can get away with all sorts of lovely little marks without causing any problems. I'm going to make a little bit of a duller green, a little cooler green up into some of these further away, like suggesting the shadows and some of the light values that are going off, and they will start coming into this area of this tree but disappear. Something like that, I think. Now, I'm not going to propose to put all the very cars. There's a load of cars parked out. You can just see the noses of them. And I'm not going to put those in at all. There's a couple of other more distant, taller trees way over there. Just tap that out a little bit. Don't need too much information on that. And I want to put a little bit more excitement into these greens. So I'm just going to come in and put a little bit more of a fresher green. While this is still damp, let it pick up and let it just play around and suggest those trees. Got a bit more green a little closer to us. Okay, I think that'll work. Just going to bring that all the way down to the edge of the river, through there and up into there too. We lose some of that definition, we get some back when this is dry, and we can put some more colour values in. So working on, let's come in with some blues, cerulean and some ultramarine, and we're going to come in with some Indian yellow, and we're just going to start looking at sort of putting some areas into the edge of this river going up through the top there. I think it could be a little warmer than that. It's a little bit too dull, so much blue in the green. So let's just take some of those out, and let's just try and suggest the sort of areas of lights and darks that we can see. The big heavy bush there, let's put that in as it comes up, and it actually sort of suggests a little bit of a ditch on the other side there. I can't quite remember, to be quite honest with you, whether there was or there wasn't, but we get some idea of what's happening up through there. And we can that actually comes in. I did miss the bend a little bit, but never mind. I'm going to come in and I'm going to suggest that. Now we've got a lot of lights going on through here, so I can actually be quite happy to just trap some of these lovely little greens in, some of these little marks in that are sort of pushing out in the foreground here, suggesting the edge of this river. And if you feel happier, grab a little rigger brush like I'm doing now, mix up some of these colours, and you can have so much more fun by suggesting very thin little, almost drawing with the paint, and you get the idea. And you can just flick these across and all over the place like that. Now while we've got this dark and while that's going on, let's very quickly put some very warm green into what will be the reflection, some indigo, which I'm using very carefully, and a lot of orange in there, so we can get this lovely sort of darkish moody color green in here, which is very suggestive of the river and the growth on stuff above. Now then, let's look at this. Let's just I want to bring that out in a minute, so I want to bring that reflection through here like so. Then I want to tap and leave little bits of light out of it. It looks like the river and the ripples, and you know, you've got one or two coming down that could actually be a lot. Oh, that's a little bit too aggressive. We can make that a nice rich darkish color green in there like that, and just run that in into that mark there. It will dry up lighter, I can assure you, and you can almost run the shape of the riverbank in this form, just like that. And then one or two other marks that are suggesting maybe that tree or those trees or bushes in the other, you know, coming through like that, and one or two, something like that. And then we can carry this on down through here into this area here, and it starts to get lost. Now there's a lot of negative greens coming back into it. I'm not going to try and confuse the issue of painting it in that fashion. I'm just going to take these ripples all the way through to the bottom and make them a lot more suggestive of the reflections of everything that's up here, this tree here included. Just take that through like so and leave it like that. It doesn't need to be much more. It's a very simple reflection of the riverbank, but what I will do is I'll go back to using this rigger, and I can start putting in one or two of these lovely marks, a little bit of orange into that, and we can put some of those reds in. But we've got lots of stuff going on, taking that all the way into some of this if you wish to, like so. How much you put in is really up to you. That's way too dark. So let's come out with some aureolin into that. Let's take that back to a dirty green colour and just play around. And literally when I do this, I often sort of say to myself, hard one, I sort of suggest myself, I'm thinking of the reeds, I'm picturing them, not just in the photograph, but in my head as I work. I'm sort of seeing all these wonderful colours and marks and shapes and forms. You know, you can sort of tap around and create all sorts that are going on, and you can come back over and you can pick up some of that Indian red that we were using for these seedy things. I'm not quite, still don't know what they're called now, but they're there, and you've got lots of stuff going on. You're just tapping away, and it's very random taps, but all the time. You know the growing habits of plants. Most of us, we see them all the time, and to that end it's quite easy to sort of picture them in our mind and just tap away with a brush and create little bits of foliage and greens and grasses as we go on. And yeah, I think you get the idea. For I sort of drive it into the ground with a big 6-inch nail, you know what I mean? Alright, so that's pretty much that's done. All we've got to do once this is dry is bring a little bit of that into there. We've done our field, but let's just give our field a little darker value, a little bit of raw sienna, and we're just going to skim that across there and just let that pick up some of the paper in one or two places and gives our field just a few more nice contours and marks as it goes up to the top of the field over there, out the way. And then if we want to, we've got a little bit of this dark which we can bring through to here and just tap in, creating the same as we did here. We're actually now going to create the positive marks of these darker lines going up through that field and across here. So you've got reeds and more of these sort of seedy things, whatever they are, and creating the edge to that field like so. And we can come back in with some of this dark green. We can pick up on this dark mark here and let that run all the way through the back here. And here also we can create a lot more of these sort of things going on, because obviously you've got the colors working through the base of the picture, but now we can create some of these that are really up close to us. And once more, some of these seedy things, I wish I could figure out what they're called, and I'm sure somebody will put me out of my misery in the comments and tell me, but you get the idea. And just a bit more of the same that we were doing down through here, and a bit more green in one or two places. Just very, very suggestive brush marks. That's all you need to do, and you get a nice feel for it. And you can make that a little fresher in the greens, lots more aureolin, and you can bring some of these marks through here. And now you can make your marks a lot less if you want to, or still quite large if you wish. Either will work, they both work. But then up here you can just start reducing the height of some of this, and you can bring some of these down in this way. So you tap some of this wet paint down into the dry, and some of this wet paint this way up into the dry too. So what you've got is light grass popping into this dark area, because you're painting now the negative spaces. Okay, if you can stay with that with me. And then on this one you're coming back the opposite way and you're painting positive marks into the grasses beyond. So, and here you can do the same thing again. You can tap a few minimal strokes to tap the negative space and suggest that there is so much more going on down in this riverbank as it goes down in to meet the water. And you can do that all the way along this riverbank if you want to. You can come in with darker marks, little taps here and there that are very suggestive. I've lost a lot of my lights going up there. Unfortunately, I can, if I want to, try it with a bit of care and just use a damp brush and lift one or two areas back out like that while the paint is still drying. I can get away with that. It can still be done when it's fairly dry if you work at it, but you try not to do it if you don't have to. It does cause you a lot more problems. And lift a little bit of light out through there, like so. Maybe a little bit here too. Just dabbing it off. Now you can go back in behind this brush with a fairly dry piece of kitchen roll. That will work very well as well. Now, while I've got this rigger, I'm just going to come in with some darker greens again. I just want to come into this area of the river, and I want to suggest that there are little bits of growth coming out in the river, like so, and going up the bank, out the site. And again here we've got a little bit coming out into the river. It just reinforces that lovely bit of shadow. Come in with some dark blue. That's a little bit too much, so come back in with some of that phthalo blue, a little bit of yellow, tap into that, maybe some orange as well. That's interesting as a lovely green, and we can bring that down through. And now we can suggest the riverbank itself. We can put some of these darks in, Once more we're looking at positive space as like so, but we can actually then create some negative reflections into the reflections themselves. Those areas that are just a little bit darker, you can come in here and we can put some real darks in here, tap into there like that, and a few more marks, and we've got more reflections that we can start suggesting. Reflections within reflections. We've got the lighter parts of the reflections, and they can have much darker areas being reflected at the same time. We need to some of that dark and that red, orange and the blue just to come through here and reinforce some of this area down here. And again, we can put in some little bits of growth up on the bank, and we can reflect them quite happily into the water through the darker but not totally dark reflection that we first put in with our paintbrush just now. I'm just going to mix some of this up and sort of break up the edge of this bank as it's coming through. You've got a lot of orange in there, so there's nothing stopping you putting maybe a little bit of green value in there, just very quickly. Just let the brush skate around and you can actually create one or two marks like in the reverse. So you're creating that negative space, or is it negative space? That's a hard one, that one. It's sort of semi-negative, isn't it? Anyway, there we go. So there's our riverbank. We can come in with a medium green colour and we can scratch into some of these places like this and start suggesting that there are little dark areas within this, giving it a little bit more contour, a little bit more form up through here, just to give that a quick splash of something happening out there. Pick up some of that orange or red colour and just literally just create lots of different shapes and forms so that you don't end up with just one flat colour. And we've got the lovely dark form of grasses going all the way around here on this. Just playing around, just tapping that little rigger, making it sort of dance over the paper, and naturally it will just leave and deposit little bits of paint here and there. And if your values are right, if your tones are right, then it will become quite believable and the brain will join all the dots. The viewer who's watching your painting will literally, they will create the patterns and the sways of grasses and weeds and seed heads, all those bits of information. If you get it right tonally and the drawing is a little bit there where you want it to be, then I think people generally will get to translate that information and make it how you want it. Okay, I'm digressing. I'm going to put in a little bit of indigo and I want a bit of vermilion into that, making it quite a dirty, a bit of orange actually, make a dirty dark. And I want to come in here and I want to put in, I'm going to make it a very dark building with a couple of suggested lights into it there. I know it's got a lighter roof, but I just haven't done that. I'll just put a dark building in, very suggestive of it is a black base of the building, it's just the roof that's a little lighter. And if that worries you, then come in with some orange, put that in over the top of the dark at that point, let it settle for a short while, and then go back in with a damp brush and lift it back. The two colours will have mixed and will have stained the paper a little further. Just going to come in with one or two of these marks again, just to tap one or two extra little bits in, like so, give me a bit more form. Okay, that'll do. And probably one of the final things we need to do is just to get some of the darks into our tree. So I'm going to come in with some ultramarine blue and some Indian yellow, some aureolin, more blue. Let's see how that green looks. And I'm going to come in with a next value, and I'm using the bigger brush for this, but you can go and happily use a smaller brush. A few taps up in here, not too many, like so. Just very beautiful big old tree, like so. Just tapping it around, leaving a few holes where the sky is popping through, where the foliage and branches is a little less dense, like so. Maybe a few more at the top there. And just scratch down, dry out the brush if you've got too much paint in there, and allow the brush. Now if you wanted to, you could make this actual thing easier if you were using a rough paper. I think I did this to you guys last week in last week's watercolor tutorial, where I was using where I did the farm. There'll be a reference to it up here somewhere, to that farm image that I painted for you last week. And that too, I suggested about using a rough paper, and I wasn't, so shame on me. I'm still not doing that, but it doesn't really make a lot of odds. It's just you get a little bit more of an easy ride when it comes to adding those skippy little marks that leave you those sky holes more clearly. I want a darker, dirtier, denser green in here. Now I use the Aureolin, so Indian red, I keep doing it, and I use some of my indigo, and that does give me that really luscious dark presence of the tree right up close. Don't come across this one. Use some of the negative space to eat into the shape of this one, like so. So we create that negative shape of the tree. We can come right the way through this area with this dark, and we can then start tapping in some of these lighter grasses that we can see. I can bring that in underneath there like so, and we can take this all the way through to under here, the bit what I sort of belly of the tree, if that's the right thing. A couple of bits of light coming down, and then it just descends into this area, and we've got all that negative space. Alright, I keep talking about negative space, but it really is an important aspect, because you can create so many other little bits of forms working through a picture by working positive and negative areas to create the illusion of certainly things like leaves, grasses, shrubs, everything of that sort of nature. One or two other darks in here, and up through the top of the crown here maybe, and just tap a couple out through into the sky, so we break up some of the shape and the form like so. It does sort of start coming across this one quite a bit. I just put that in like that. Just a couple of clear little taps just to alter the shape. We've got a big dark mass through here. Let's just quickly bash that in like so. Take that all the way down, and again we can use that negative space just to suggest. And you can actually have two, because you can have that line, and you could come up and leave a little bit of that green and suggest that there is something else in grass form that's growing through the back there. So you created yet another value. There we go. There we are. Okay, one last thing I have forgotten, but I want to put it in, and I'm going to use a little bit of a mix of yellow ochre, it's not yellow ochre, raw sienna and burnt sienna, and a little bit more water than I had. And just very quickly I want to put in this nice warm reflection that's coming on down, a little bit of violet into that, a little bit of ultramarine violet, tap it almost in, and let that come through there and be very suggestive up the river. And then using these two colours we can just pop in some of the shadows of the riverbank up in there that come all the way down into there, and we can just stop them, and that is all we need it to be, like so. There we go. If you want more, or you want to take some of this out, you just have to lift a little bit out here and there. Alright, and I did tell you about lifting out a little bit of that restaurant. So let's just take a medium round brush, wet it up, take a lot of the paint out of it, and just, the water out of it, and just gently lift that bit of roof right out. Now you see how I put the blue colour in to begin with, went over it with the orange, but now by doing this I've lifted out and I've kept that dark underneath, but I've given it a nice warm glow. And if I want to recolour with a a bit of red in there, just to give it that warmer, even still, just deposit a little bit of red over there like so, and we have our roof done. So there we are, one quick painting. I will just put a signature in it somewhere so we know that I did it. a little bit of dark because we've got a dark value down through here. So let's just put my name in there. Sorted. Okay, so we're done. I hope that was fine, and I hope it was pretty quick. I'm not too sure until I look back at the footage. But if you've enjoyed this, then please, if you would be so kind, hit the subscribe button. If you are watching this and you're not a subscriber, then a lot of work goes into this channel. I really am trying to grow the audience. So please, 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 hit the subscribe button, and I think there'll be a suggestion of it up there somewhere, and click the bell icon. Also, it tells you every time I put a new video up. And if you have liked it, click the like button and add any comments you like. I'll always answer them. They'll be most welcome, and that'll be fantastic moving forward. And if you've got friends who you know are not watching the video and you think that would enjoy it, then share this video to them. Let them see it too. With all that said and done, don't forget my live stream. Every week I do 2 live streams for you on my channel. One on a Monday, one on a Friday at 7 p.m. GMT. That's because I'm in the UK. And you're most welcome to come in, have a look. You don't even have to get involved with a chat if you don't want to. You'd be very welcome to say hi, and I'll say hi back. But if you just want to sit and watch me paint for a couple of hours, then come in and enjoy it. Once a week it's a watercolor, and the other time of the week is an oil, and you'll be most welcome to join in. That will be fantastic. And if you still want more, then I have a Patreon. Now, our Patreon channel, all the details and the links are in the descriptions underneath, and there's a little sign up there, I think, that will say Patreon too. But over on the Patreon, you can get involved. You can help me finance all the effort that I'm doing for not just this, but also primarily for my patrons. And you get so much more content. There are Facebook pages that is dedicated just for my patrons too. Lots more full-length versions of everything that's going on. And there are even a tier there where you can actually get involved with me every month on a one-to-one basis, one-to-one Zoom tutorials, where I can actually help you with your work. And several of my students have become involved with that and found it very, very helpful to keep on, especially in lockdown, to keep on talking with me and getting one-to-one advice. So if any of that interests you, please, you'd be so welcome to become a patron. That'll be fantastic. And you do know that for a coffee or 2 a month, then you are actually helping me to finance and keep every effort that I'm doing here moving forward and actually creating more and more content. So with that all said and done, I think I've run out of gas now and you'll be pleased for that, I'm sure. But join me, each and every one of you, in the next video, which will be next Friday. And also, don't forget those 2 live streams, because there's a lot of going on in there, and they're all warts and all. So if I mess up, I mess up. You see it live. And yeah, what else can I say? Happy painting. Keep going. Stay safe. All the best, guys. Catch you all next week. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.